Yo, hang up. That's police.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dusty Auspex. My name is Dr. Kenneth Noisewater, and we are broadcasting to you live here at PvP, Ultra Lounge, Cyber Lounge. It's a Cyber Lounge. Producer Josh looks like he's going to pull a gun out and put it to the side of my head fairly soon, much like a commissar would be expected to do.
It's all about Nurgle. I mean, look, it's on the tin.
Look.
It's on the tin.
Yeah, and now my 2 teen burgers I just ate are on the mic. And I guess you guys are probably asking yourselves, who's this cool cat that's hanging out with us today? And we've got Thurston with us. Thurston has been an installation in the local 40K, and
I'm about the size of an installation. You could probably put a squad in here, yes.
I'll accept it. But yeah, he's been playing 40K since I started back in 3rd edition at least. I'm not sure about his history before that, but we might find out later.
Back in my day. No, I was 3rd edition too, so you're not going to get like 2nd edition bouncing grenade things from me, sorry.
No, but you and I both know how it feels to throw a rock.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's fair.
Anywho, lots of cool stuff happening as usual in the Games Workshop world. I'm thinking like we do focus a lot on 40K on this show, but it's becoming more of like a Games Workshop show in reality, because there's so many games that they keep putting out, and they're all mostly of interest, at least a little bit.
And they're crossing the streams a lot lately too.
Yes.
Just with like the rules, even like Age of Sigmar and 40K. There's some similarities.
Yeah, 3 is 1, but other than that. Although I don't understand the data sheet still from Age of Sigmar. There's a couple things that still kind of float over my head. I haven't spent any real time looking at them, but like I noticed they have that little circle on the side, and I'm like, the hell is that about?
My God, there's no comparing numbers on how I have to wound. I just have a number I roll.
What?
Yeah.
But essentially, there's been some more side stuff happening as of late.
Oh,
So we were talking briefly about it beforehand. Like, Shadespire is Warhammer Underworlds.
Yep.
A lot of people just think it's Shadespire, but that's just the first set from what I understand.
Yeah. My understanding from listening to some shows recently about it, because I don't play it. Spoiler alert: 2018 is the year of Nurgle for Thirsty. So unless it's Nurgle themed, I'm not buying it. That's how I'm justifying like all my purchases this year.
Very
so
nice.
Until Shadespire gets a Nurgle gang, too bad, so sad. But I've been listening to some shows and stuff on it. Yeah, I think they said there's going to be 2 box sets, like core box sets for it.
Right.
And that they're looking at something like 8 or 10 different gangs.
I'm thinking that
crazy.
if they're going to run, for the most part, a selection, like a sampler of Age of Sigmar style things, we got Skaven, and there's like, what, skeletons or what, like some kind of undead thing.
Yeah.
But I imagine demons will eventually get in there.
I'm hoping. I mean, so to kind of bring it all back home to where we started, like Gamma trade shows going on right now, which I am well aware of because I work in the game industry and my company's there pimping their stuff. But Games Workshop is there, and they put on, which is far more interesting to me because I know all the stuff my company's talking about. But Games Workshop is there, and they put on their thing, and interestingly, they didn't have like a single 40K announcement there.
Really?
Well, I mean, the only thing that you might have had as an announcement was the Forgebane.
I suppose, like, on some level, though, their online presence has really been getting the work done for them. You know, like, every time they even do anything, or they're even, like, they even roll over in the middle of the night, people are, like, tweeting about it, you know? And, like, you got sites like Fayette and even the Warhammer community page, which are giving people tons of information.
It's crazy. Like, officially, we've gone from what is like the you don't know anything until a week in advance, to now you get stuff 2 weeks in advance because Warhammer Community is kind of posting that.
Games Workshop used to be like a parent whose kid kept calling for them at the park, and the parent kept ignoring them, and then eventually they'd be like, "We're leaving now," you know, like, and you'd just be like,
"Ah, guys, have 40 things, okay."
Here's what you always wanted. Sorry, it's been 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. But it's interesting because I think the only thing new out of Gamma, and we've known about it for a while, really, has been the Forgebane, the Necrons versus AdMech, which is awesome because I play AdMech. I have a whole army sitting around.
Oh, I've dealt with them in the past.
Yeah, that's fair.
It didn't go well for me.
Orcs and AdMech, best team. But yeah, it's interesting that like we've known about that for a bit. I think at the LVO they showed off those new walkers that are in the set, and the Cryptek for the Necron side.
Mini Richer Knight.
Yes, which is like way smaller than I keep thinking it will be because I look at it and I'm like, that's going to be tiny.
You know what's funny? When they keep saying miniature knight, I keep thinking of a knight.
Yeah, right.
A knight is like a miniature titan. And then I'm like, oh, wait, it's smaller than a knight.
It'll be like 3 inches smaller than a knight. Oh, wait.
It's like the middle child between the dreadnought and the friggin' knight. So it is mini. I'll tell you that much.
But then we get we have like Forgebane, which they like announced first, I think, at their presentation, and then everything else is nothing to do with 40K. Which I'm gonna go out on the limb and say they're saving their 40K announcements for Adepticon next week.
Yes, that makes sense.
And we'll get into that in a sec because like the rest of their announcements, so they go off with Shadespire, and they're like, we're announcing 2 new warbands. They aren't really new. They're actually just 2 rehashes of existing warbands because it's more Khorne stuff, more Sigbros, Sigmarines, Stormcast Eternals. That's the one.
That's right.
I've been reading the books recently, so so we get 2 of those, which is kind of disappointing because I was really hoping like that we get new stuff. Like give me a Nurgle band, and I'm all over that, or like give us like an elf band or something like that.
Right, not an existing band. Yeah.
Which okay, like don't get me wrong, Shadespire continues to pique my interest, but Year of Nurgle can't do anything yet. But then we get to the Necromunda side, and they announced a new gang, and it's obviously an old gang that they've redone, the Van Sars. And like compared to the previous gangs they've done, the Van Sars look radically different. Have you seen
radically good or radically bad?
I actually like them. But like the old Van Sars had like a very unique like look to them, and these ones are like they've got sort of this transitional like green metallic armor. One of them has this shield that's bigger than a storm shield, and it's translucent. Like it's obviously made out of plastic. Like it's like Eldar cockpits.
Like a cockpit. Yeah.
And so they showed all of these, and it was like, wow, that's pretty cool and new. And that was their Necro thing. And then I'm trying to think what else they had after. Oh, Kill Team. Kill Team was announced. That was the other kind of 40K announcement. I'll give it to them because, I mean, it's going to let me use all my 40K models.
Now, Kill Team, interestingly enough, when it was announced in 7th, I kind of tried it. I played a couple games. People were digging it, but it almost dropped right off the map when 8th came out.
Oh, yeah.
As if everyone was just like, never speak of it again, you know?
People wanted their, like, support rules, I think.
Yeah.
But, like, from what I was reading up about Kill Team, it looks like they're using a whole new rule set for it. Like, it's not just going to be 8-bed. It's, like, there was D10s and D8s in those pictures.
It was getting a little too wacky. You know, like, honest to God, one thing that I've always liked about 40K stuff is D6 based. And I like, when I play a game system, to use one type of die. And the rest I just save to count down counters and stuff, you know? Like, that's me.
My inner role-playing game player is dying a little here.
Hey, some systems use D20s, and I'm fine with that. If it's all D20 across the board, I say give her. But, you know, like, I like the consistency in it rather than, like, is that a D10 or a D8? But, like, a D3 is easy to do. You don't even need a D3, right? Like,
it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to see what they're doing, because it's like Necromunda is that sort of, like, low, like, I don't know, close-up view of the universe, and they're getting into the nitty-gritty, and it's got, like, a very, like, I don't know, 3rd through 7th edition feel in terms of rules and whatnot, and I don't know if Kill Team's going to be something radically different, and it seems like it will be.
It seems on track to be. I'll tell you what game was radically different, and I really enjoyed, was Shadow War.
Oh, yeah.
Shadow War was awesome, and I love the RPG feel to it, where even as an orc player, the 4 different types of choppas all had their own entries in there, and they all had their own point values, and I was doing well. Like, we had a day where we played at producer Scott's place, and I ended up having a great time. I ended up adding like 3 or 4 boys to my whole mob, and I was killing it.
One thing they mentioned in their, like, presentation with Kill Team was that it's going to be a game that appeals to the wargamers, like the people who already have their armies or whatnot, but also to role players, which, okay, that like tickles my fancy, because I always, Mordheim, Necromunda, like all that, like, oh man, my thing is evolving and there's a story here. And
I really like that element of this gameplay, and I wish more 40K stuff, like, locally would go that way. I remember back in the day, I think you used to be one of the Comics America guys. Like, I was one of them too. I was also a Campaign Outfitters guy.
Yeah.
But the Vogan campaign was super fun. Like, that's one of my favorite 40K memories of all time, was that whole thing, placing your pins, making a move each week. You know, it was really fun.
I remember doing that same campaign. I was helping administer the one at Comics America, so I was part of a different Vogan campaign that was going on. And I remember just the, like, oh, looks like this week I'm playing Mike Major for the 3rd time in a row because we were that, like, close on the map.
Yeah.
But it was this great thing where you built these rivalries and there were these stories. I remember, like, even in Warhammer Fantasy when they used to do those campaigns, that was the original General's Handbook, I think, for Warhammer Fantasy had like a whole, it was like General's Compendium, maybe, I forget. It was a book that was like, had a full campaign and it had a map and all the rules and the tokens.
That's awesome.
It was like, I remember before the Games Workshop store opened here, the soon-to-be manager at the time, Kieran was his name, a really awesome guy. He showed up like 3 months before the store opened, went to Campaign Outfitters when it was still around, and his thing was he brought all the people involved in the community together and was like, okay, you're all the big names who are like playing weekly or part of like tournaments, whatnot, we're going to run a campaign so I can get to know you all. And that was like how a bunch of us got into fantasy.
That's great.
Because at the time, like, Winnipeg didn't have a huge fantasy community. We had a bunch of people who were kind of breaking into it, but it was still 40K.
Yeah.
Like back in the 3rd edition old days. But that really got a bunch of people playing fantasy, and that was my first big experience with fantasy. So I love those narrative style events. I think, like, the thing about competitive play is super fun, and don't get me wrong, I've actually been getting into it more and more. But there's that element of, like, if you get curb stomped so many times, you're just going to kind of walk away dejected. Whereas in a campaign or something narrative, even if you get your face punched in, you're still going to have a good story like, oh man, my guy lost an arm, so I can put a chainsaw on it now. Like, there's some cool stuff you can do.
You know what, in truth, like, when our sort of like gaming group with Rory and those guys got back into 40K during 7th edition. We ran the Vogan in our basement, but as an escalation. So we started with it was 1 or 2 500-point games were your first 2, and then 750, 1,000, 1250, 1,500, etc. Eventually, people stopped showing up regularly, and it made it really hard to finish it, so we couldn't. But
that's the counterpoint
yes,
to any kind of organized thing.
It's tough to get everyone to come out and make their moves every week.
Oh yeah. That's why I know there's been a lot of success with leagues that have been more focused on, like, don't worry about coming out like every set day on a week.
The 40 below ones are monthly.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the Age of Sigmar League, which I've been part of. Like, my opponent couldn't make it down for the first league. We scheduled a game. We've had to reschedule again, but we have a whole month to get it in. Like, I'm hopeful we'll get it in.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? A lot of guys that play this game have families too, and to expect them to come out every week is just like way too hard. Honest to God, I think the sweet spot for playing 40K is single. Like, I have a partner, you have a partner. Yep. We know how you can't just get home from work every day and just work on your stuff and then go play on Friday. You know, like, I dream about it. But I love my partner, but like, I just wish I could do it more.
Oh yeah,
and I don't have kids. Once there's kids, man, everything. Like, whoa, you're playing like once every 6 months.
Yeah, and I balance that with like freelance work, spending time with my partner. I know, like yesterday, I was excited because it's like, okay, I can paint trees, and I'm like, no, I haven't spent time with the missus.
Yeah.
Let's watch like 7 episodes of The Expanse tonight. Sweet. And that was awesome.
And then the trees are like,
but the trees are like, paint me thirsty. And I'm like, no, I've made my life choice and I'm happy with it.
Yeah.
I mean, the trees will get painted. Don't worry, because Papa Nurgle.
Well, one thing that I've been working on is getting the 40K ladder set up for Winnipeg. So at Hidden City Comics, and probably we'll count some like the expos or maybe not the expos, but like the open gaming here at PvP, that kind of thing. Might only end up being Hidden City, not sure yet. But essentially what I'd like to do is create a ladder system for people who are playing as often as they can. So people who show up regularly can play a game. Like, everyone will start with a default rating, like most ladder systems. And then I've created a system where you don't just play one person and get the same amount of points every time. So the way it'll work is, like, if you're playing people who are more on par, you have a decent spread. If you're playing people who are way better than you, it's a bigger spread. And if you're playing someone whose score is just in the toilet and you're killing it, you're going to get maybe a couple points off that game.
Yeah.
But it allows you to engage on like an other level without there being pressure of making a move every week or anything like that. And then that way it's nice. You can just say, oh yeah, my ladder score was this, and then we'll reset it whenever, and that kind of thing. I would like, that's what we're kind of trying to work on now, but not sure when that's going to start.
Like, having a structure to any game is important, and like being able to come out weekly and have some reason to come out beyond just like, I'm going to get in my game.
Yeah.
That's snowball effects and helps people come out. I know, like, last Tuesday when we had the league here, like, we had every table filled with Age of Sigmar people because league time.
And you know what, though? That's so wicked. Like, you know how hard that was to do up until this league?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God. I think we had Age of Sigmar available at the last 40BX, and there were maybe like 6 or 7 guys that showed up. Filling the joint is wicked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's even Fabio's getting back into Sigmar.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I feel like I need to now, but I know that the money that I should keep for other things.
Just do what I do. Cheat.
Yeah.
Have demons. You can do both.
Yeah, I know. That
was my plan.
Oh, God. I'm already halfway there, actually.
Yeah.
I should look at the demon stuff for Sigmar.
I've been playing that.
My goodness.
When we talk more about the Nurgle side, I can talk all about the Age of Sigmar.
And everyone will be like, how come they're on Sector Imperialis bases? And I'll be like, I have to go now.
The warp. It does crazy warp things.
The future.
Realm of Chaos. Yeah. And I guess, like, coming around full circle back to Kill Team, which is where we launched off of.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see. I know, like Kill Team, Necromunda, they like Shadow War Armageddon, they all kind of like were aiming for the same niche.
Yes.
So I'm just hoping that, like, it seems with Necromunda now they've really gone into this is a gang game. I think the only like 40k stuff they've brought in so far is Gene Stealer Cult with like a White Dwarf.
I'm thinking there's got to be a threshold and a time limit for these games because Warhammer Underworlds went really well.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that one, they're like, okay, keep building on it. And then you look at like the original Kill Team and Shadow War, and then Necromunda has been rehashed again. I'm wondering if a year from now, if people don't really take to these things, they might just pull them off the shelves again.
It seems like Kill Team's the smart move, because with Necromunda, I think it's filling a niche because it's all basically new armies, because all the gangs are just so unique.
Yeah.
I think that fills a good niche. It fills a type of game. I think with Kill Team, it's not really it's not a stretch for them, because all they have to do is essentially go, oh man, you have models, you can buy this book, and it's a book they have to put out.
Yeah.
And then they can throw out some terrain with it, and they're good. But like, I don't know, I'm excited for it.
I think the important part is time. Like these games, like for example, Warhammer Underworlds, you can play in between a match sometimes.
Yeah. That was a big tournament thing.
It might only be half an hour, 40 minutes, maybe an hour if it's complicated. If you can narrow any of these concepts down to that time frame, a half-hour game of anything Games Workshop is like thumbs up.
Absolutely.
I heard Blood Bowl games are taking 2 hours plus now.
Yeah, and that is crazy. I mean,
yeah.
I really like the Age of Sigmar because we were playing it, and we're playing like 1,000 points at the start of the league, and we were doing games in like an hour and a half, and that was really nice and like felt comfortable. Speaking of which, kind of like after the Kill Team, there was one more announcement for Games Workshop from their Gamma release, which was the Idenith Deep mermaids. We're going to get fish people mermaid army. It's going to be amazing. I don't know anything about it.
Oh goodness.
But they're apparently doing like fish people elves.
Really?
Yeah.
So when you were saying friggin' fish people before the show, you weren't referring to the Tau. You were referring to another race of fish people.
In fantasy.
Okay.
Who are apparently going to be like aquatic themed elves.
Don't know how I missed that. Oh my god, that's hilarious.
It's really, they haven't shown anything. I assume we're going to see it at Adepticon. I assume we're also at Adepticon going to see like the next 3 codexes or whatever. Because what do we have left on what they announced at the LVO? They've done Tau, they've done Necrons are next.
And then we're expecting Drakari, Space Wolves will be next after Necrons, I believe. Yeah. And then it's Drakari, Harlequins, Orcs.
Yeah.
And I'm holding tight for the greenskins.
I'm holding tight for sisters. I'd really like my girlfriend to have to experience the wallet pain I do with this game.
That's what it'll take, eh?
She's been waiting for him. So.
What do you mean you don't like sexless green things born of mushrooms that are mostly male-looking?
Yeah. the burly arms.
Yeah.
But no, that was it out of Gamma. Seems. I think they're saving their 40k, their big push announcements more for Adepticon. Maybe come summer. I mean, there's also been rumors of like Age of Sigmar 2nd edition this summer too. So
actually, that'll be interesting because I'm really curious, big picture, to know what's going to come after 8th, or if there will be something after 8th. Because everyone said Age of Sigmar was just going to be this living beast.
Yep.
So who knows if they will remake it?
I'm curious too because, like, by summer, with the rate they've been releasing codexes, like, what do they do, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. So what I think is going to happen, this is my theory, based on relatively little.
Hot take, folks. Yeah, hot take.
Definitely have no anything to back this with. I think what they're going to do is, because they're going to release a campaign book in box right at like the end of all of the books. I think we're going to see formations come back. I think campaign books are going to become like 7th edition. I don't think they're going to become stupid, but I think like in 7th, when they ran out of books, instead of remaking them every month, they just kept releasing campaigns. And so I think we'll probably see a year of campaigns, maybe like half a year, like 3/4 of a year. But I think that's the next step. Ideally, they don't do stupid formations like existed in 7th edition. But I think that concept might come back.
I would love to see them take on the War Machine model. which was their old model, I should say, the War Machine Hordes model from Privateer Press, where they released a book, like 2 books a year, but it was stuff for every army, and every army got like 3 or 4 new units, and that was like, and if you
almost
do that
like an
on,
index.
yeah, but if you do that on a campaign level, where it's like this campaign book involves these 4 or 5 factions, which becomes way easier with Imperium, and you could kind of see them like, they were doing that in 7th and 6th, like the Blood Angels like campaign books and stuff.
At a certain point, though, they're going to have to reprint the codexes.
Oh,
because like the
absolutely.
early ones already have lots of omitted data and
Absolutely.
tons of things where you're just kind of looking at it going, whoa.
But I think there's only, I think they can get away with like we're releasing a new codex every like 2 or 3 years. I don't think they can get away with like we're releasing a new codex for each army every year.
No, I think what they'll do is they'll maybe, now that they've had this schedule, I'm guessing they're gonna just start the schedule over again. So maybe we'll see Space Marines be re-released.
But
like,
I was gonna say, even
down
then,
the road.
if we're looking at that, Space Marines have been out for what, like a year? Like,
Yeah.
not, like when was their codex released? Like August, September?
Yeah, so maybe
So it's like that.
maybe we'll see campaign work.
That's what
and
I'm
then
thinking.
maybe like a year off of printing codexes and just campaign stuff. And then maybe they'll go back to the way they used to be. Like, quite frankly, this release schedule is on the heels of them literally nuking the game system that they were using. So they had to replace everything this fast.
I'm curious if we're gonna see things like a new race. I could definitely see them.
I would love to see some new races.
I would definitely imagine.
Like,
they would
I
go
was
in that
excited when
direction.
Gene Stealer Cult came out, and let me just say, I don't care enough to purchase or play them, but I'm still happy they did it.
They
you know?
were
Like,
they were my like
come on
second-
and join the party.
They were my Necromunda gang. I had all those old models that, you know, one of those hybrids sells for like $100 because you can't get them anymore.
I'd like to see some really cool new Xenos, and I'd also like to see squads.
Yeah. I think like there's some maneuvering that's going on, like just that Necromunda bounty hunter. Like
Also,
they're back.
Carteron overlords are kind of tickling the squad fancy. You think they might also, because it's a steampunky feel. It's
I know it's been thrown out there as a crazy thing, but I could see a Kroot Codex too.
Yeah, there's been some rumor of that.
Yeah, I could.
You're not the first
certainly-
person who's I've heard that from.
Yeah.
I think that there's
I've
probably
seen it
gonna
online
be.
too, and I'm like, you know, the more I think about it, especially with how they're changing up the game to be, I don't want to say more allied focused because last edition was like allied to the max, but the idea that you could have like a Kroot Codex and then have like a special rule that's like, oh, you can take a detachment of X amount in an Imperium army because they're mercenaries.
Right. You know what? I think it would be really cool to take Kroot in its own codex, because if you look at it, if you're playing Tau, there are so many other things you can take instead of Kroot. How many people do you know who play with Kroot? Other than maybe a screen now in 8th edition.
Yep.
Like in 7th? Good luck. Like, nobody played with Kroot.
The last time I remember seeing them on the table was when I took them in like 6th.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I had 20 of them painted and was like, well, these can be the fodder.
I'll let these ones die first.
The other thing I've heard that would be like another interesting take, I think, would be to do an index-like codex, sort of what they did with like Heroes of the Imperium or Agents of the Imperium, was
Right,
it?
yeah.
But do that for Xenos and be like, yeah, here's Kroot, here's some Hrud stuff, here's some Enslavers,
That would
like
be
all
cool.
those random things that are in fluff but could never fit in a proper
Well, it's like what I
codex.
wish they had done with Custodes and Sisters and like
yeah.
everyone. I wish that there was just an Inquisition book.
Or just like,
Put it all in. Even Grey Knights.
yeah, like
Why do they need their own codex? I hate Grey Knights.
Well, it's like Talons of the Emperor. Like, now we're gonna wait to get like a whole new. Now, color me wrong if I'm wrong, but if we get a whole Sisters of Silence codex, that's like, you know, multiple units, multiple vehicles. Like we get our flying rhinos.
Yeah.
Sweet. I'm on board.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Give me 2 female armies in this game. Yay. But if they're gonna do like Custodes as their own army, and then Sisters of Silence are kind of like 2 units in the back of an Inquisition book later on.
Yeah.
That like it feels like they're
Kind of a
playing
cop
some
out
dumb
there, yeah.
games there. Yeah.
Now, I think, because we're getting about to the half
Oh, boy.
of the show here, maybe is a good time to switch over. Our main subject here was going to be the lovely
Nurgle.
Papa Nurgle.
Papa.
Nurgle.
Happy Nurgle.
And moreover, Death Guard as well. But we both are a couple of nurgly gents here, and as demonstrated at the top of the show, I can bring it home and fry it in the pan.
I am more the happy, lovable aspect of Pop Nurgle.
And I'm like the puking on my chest version.
It's fair.
So why don't you give us a brief rundown of what it is that you do in the world of Nurg?
Oh, of Nurg? Well, so some background on how I got tricked into Nurgle. 8th edition came out, and they were releasing all these index books, and I was all sorts of adamant of I am going to play my AdMech because I just finished painting them all for 7th.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna play AdMech. It's gonna be great. Then I was getting in all the indexes, and I realized something that was really it bothered my OCD. I had an army from each of the indexes but Chaos, and I'm like, you know what I should do? I should fix this problem. And then they showed the Dark Imperium Death Guard, and all these people online were like, oh, it's ruining the fluff of Nurgle. They look so cartoony and happy. I'm like, have you not read anything about this game? He has been portrayed as that since day one. It's just they've never had the modeling quality to do stuff like that.
Exactly.
And so I was like, okay, 8th edition comes out, Death Guard. I'm doing it. I'm getting them painted. We're doing our monthly painting challenges here. I'm posting Death Guard things every month.
Every time. And I think with some success as well.
I did okay. But I'm trying to get it all sorts of done. And sure enough, we're coming into the December stretch, and everyone in our local groups is going, "Oh man, Age of Sigmar! Let's do Age of Sigmar! Everybody, Age of Sigmar!" I'm sitting there "Oh, you." But then I realized I'm okay, I can make this work. Nurgle demons work with Death Guard, so it's not too much of a stretch to start painting up some Nurgle demons.
No, exactly. And actually, it's really nice how the synergies kind of cross over. Well, we're not 100% sure. I think, and I'm hoping, but...
I think you're in for a sad revelation on that.
Why don't we ask the chat, actually, quickly? So I want to bring a Poxbringer to buff my bloat drones. So far, what I've read in forums says I'm good to go. But has that been actually FAQ'd? I didn't actually look.
I believe that was part of the Grand Chaos Demons release FAQ bomb.
The faction keyword bomb.
Yeah, where they were like, "Oh, you can't buff Mortarians, sir. Get wrecked."
If that's if that's true, then I'm ditching one of these Poxbringers. And because
I don't even think you can use the Poxbringer's spells on Plague Burst crawlers anymore. Because that's the same thing.
Well, one of the lists, though, this is why I think there might be some merit to it, is in the Million Plague Burst Crawler list, people still run Epidemius to boost Nurgle demons, including the crawlers.
Yeah, I'd have to check. I don't know if... and again, I should have my rule book because I'm terrible. But, I think Epidemius, his line is Nurgle units and not demon.
I think, you know
that might be. But yeah, they're those keywords are so... it's funny because, sort of stepping back to the whole, I'm sure playing a bunch of Age of Sigmar now because that's what everyone's playing, so I switched to Chaos Demons. Age of Sigmar has the same damn problem.
Yeah.
We're there's the Nurgle keyword, and then there's your different varieties of spicy chipotle Nurgle, regular Nurgle,
I know,
mild Nurgle, and it's things like the Skaven, that the Klein Pestilence. They still have the Nurgle keyword, so I can take them. And in Age of Sigmar, it's certainly
it says you can't use stratagems. Oh, well then I guess area buffs are still cool.
That might Oh, stratagems might be the thing. Yeah. So.
Yeah, because they don't want you deep striking Mortarion.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing.
Which makes sense.
If it was specific to that, then
sweet. Oh my god, that was the one thing where they were like, "Yeah, this is going to be really cool. Print it." And then, within half an hour on Facebook, they're like, "Oh my God, we've made a big mistake."
Yes. Well, because it was oh man, I'll take a Chaos Demon detachment and deep strike in Magnus and Mortarion.
It's fluffy because Great Unclean One makes sense. And then, as soon as you see the actual crossovers there, and that's why they ended up preventing that for only that one book.
Yeah.
Because that was clearly a mistake.
But it's interesting, it's that sort of reaction mentality from Games Workshop. And again, I work in the gaming industry. I understand the the desire and absolute dread of FAQing anything. Because fans will tear you apart no matter what you do.
Well, you know what I like? You know what's hilarious is some of the oversights. Like, it's not like the FAQs have all just been nerfs. Like, some of the errata has been hilarious. Like in the Death Guard book, add this model, like, to Demon Prince, can take wings.
Can take wings.
That's like so like basic
Well,
for a Demon Prince, you know?
Yeah, well, and it was like they had it in the model, but they didn't have it in the points, and it was like,
Yeah.
oh, I get wings for free, haha.
You know what else kills me is how, like, a sanguinary priest in the Codex can't take any war gear, but the one in the Index can have literally
and
any.
then they've come up with that whole
Flow chart for the indexing,
chart of indexing,
which I think is so strange. I mean, on some level, yes, you know, it's good because all the information's out there, but at the same time, it's so unclear to someone who has no friggin' clue.
I think that comes from how they're portraying the game now with these new codexes, because the big thing about these new codexes is that they basically are like, does this option exist in the box? No, it is not a model we sell. Goodbye.
Well,
but those are all in the index.
Do you think it's a paper problem? Do you think that if none of this stuff was printed and sold in hardcover and softcover, if it were all just digital, that this would be there would be like absolutely no confusion?
Oh, absolutely.
Like, what if you paid an annual subscription and they just updated everything and you could just have one pool of information to draw from?
What a wonderful world.
to draw on a different game that I've played a fair bit of, like Privateer Press, War Machine and Hordes.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they do it. They have basically moved away from printed rule books. All of their cards, which are like data sheets, you know, all their cards are now on an app. And if you don't have an app for whatever reason, you don't have a phone or a tool that can get it, you can go to their website and download the most recent copy of the cards. You can even select which ones you want to print and print them yourself.
It feels like they're like a company that makes movies that they only let you rent.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, they're just like, nah, we're not going to change it. This is an outdated way of doing it.
I still think that we're in the process of seeing that transition to the new GW.
I love having the printed material, but at the end of the day, if it's going to change all the time, it's
I think there's some
hard to justify sometimes.
As someone who works specifically in printed books, I think there's some justification for people love their libraries, people love their printed books.
Yes.
Honestly, the majority of people who play these games probably won't even understand that the FAQ exists, and they're playing with some local groups.
Exactly,
and,
you know?
And they're going to do their fun thing.
Five buddies in a basement playing, you know, 3-player games.
Exactly. And to Games Workshop, I mean, from a purely business standpoint, it makes sense. We're selling books. We're doing good selling books.
Well, you can make lots of money selling books, but
I mean, we're seeing this with other games where they're picking up the slack. I mean, Infinity, War Machine, and Hordes, like all of these games where you can get the rules online for free. I mean, even Games Workshop is doing it with Age of Sigmar, where they're like, oh yeah, on your phone, every model. Yay, sweet. I think we're still in the Titanic veering and changing course. Yeah. Because I would hazard a guess their Games Workshop's production cycle is years in advance of what we're seeing. And you can already sort of see some of that. Like, to get an example, I would say that the Tau Codex that's coming out, and we've already had some spoilers for, when 8th edition came out, we had the indexes. The biggest Tau problem was, oh my god, they're deep striking 1 million Tau, commanders. Yeah. Oh, what's been changed
Commanders
in the
and drones.
Commanders are now like 0 to 1 per detachment. So if we extrapolate, when the index is released and everyone, how many months of a gap is that, right? And that's just to print. That's not, we're starting to work on the project. No. That could have been the Tau Codex is ready to go to the printer, but last minute we're going to throw in this little line because that's what we're seeing now. And again, I can't possibly comment on what their production cycle is, but the idea that it's so far out, we're still in that process of seeing them course correct.
Right.
And I mean, you would tell me 3 years ago that Games Workshop would be like this today, and I would have laughed in your face because they were making every wrong decision imaginable.
So you know what? It is nice. I mean, it's easy for us to pick apart small details, but at the end of the day, it's way better than it's ever been.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the community involvement, the fact that we're getting FAQs. I mean, say what people will about the quality of books that are coming out. I still think that there's. at least they're making note and addressing things. Yes, it sucks that you have to go out and get an FAQ, or it sucks that there's an option that you were like spending $1,000 on, but the players who are playing the game at that level and that style, you've got to get into a Magic the Gathering mentality.
Yeah.
Where there's a bit of, hey, things are going to change because we want this to be a balanced game.
Yeah.
And it absolutely sucks because this game costs a lot of money. Like in Magic, the most you're going to pay for a deck is going to be a couple $100 for like, you know, your top tier and you're finding deals and whatnot. In this, it's like, I want to play a top tier army. In some cases, that could be like $2,000, or you know, that could be like, you know, anywhere from $1,000 to $2,000.
Painted properly.
Well, let's not even get into
layer,
that, right? Exactly. And the time and involvement. So I get it. It absolutely sucks for people who pick up those lists. I'm going to bring this back to Nurgle. I am still waiting for them to go, Plagueburst Crawlers, we're gonna fix that problem, because I love the model. I would totally be the person to go out and buy like 10 of them.
140 points.
It's a great model. I would not be surprised if in their next FAQ round they're like, oh, that's getting a points bump, or that's getting a
You know what I think, though? I think, like, and this is a common discussion on Death Guard forums right now, is when is the Plagueburst Crawler nerf coming? Some people argue, and I think that it won't ever come, because despite its seemingly low point cost, its high toughness, its incredible resilience, 5s on 5s on 5s all day, take them all if you want, it's not winning tournaments.
It's not. But I think where Games Workshop right now is in the state of their FAQ and erratas.
Yeah.
Like the Commander is the perfect example. The Commander list was not winning every tournament imaginable.
It was cheesing, I guess you're right.
But it was like a thing that people would go, oh, that's not a fun experience.
Valid.
And I think when we're talking about balance, there's the level of like, is this winning tournaments? Is this kicking ass and taking names and taking all the trophies? And is this a fun game experience?
Mind you, another thing to consider too is with some of the particular buffs that they've given commanders, is they're a drastically different animal now. Like they've got that insane threat range, But
it's a case of, like, if they nerf the Plagueburst Crawler, like, I could see them doing it in a way that will, like, they could do it in ways that will not be points adjustments, or even if they do a points adjustment, maybe it's so that you get like one less in a list if you were to spam them.
I don't know why, I'm going to call it right now. If they point nerf them, I think they're going to go to 156 or 158.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where technically they should be.
And again, like, you get to that point where you can't take, like, maybe one or two less in a list.
Yeah.
There you go. Like, that's
and you know what though? Like, it has the linchpins of the 10 Rust list that we're seeing at 2K. You know what it is? It's that, like, for example, I play Blood Angels. Now, granted, the difference is that a Plagueburst Crawler has auto-hit weaponry at 9 inches. Yeah. But if you're at 9.1 inches and you can get into combat somehow, like if you've got tricks up your sleeves, like a 3d6 charge or something, you can avoid that. And even if you do take it, it's still just -1, right? So you're not dead. But when I was playing Death Company against like Lehman Russes, I wouldn't even try and blow them up. I'd maybe try and blow up one a turn, but I would just hug all of them. And then they'd back up, and then I'd hug them again. And then, you know, like, you can do that to the Plagueburst Crawler.
Oh, yeah. And
it's not like the drone. The bloat drone can fly away and shoot again.
But I don't think we're at a point where, like, I personally don't think that they're broken. Like, sure, the points might need a slight tweak, and I could see that, but I don't think they're broken.
No.
What I think the problem is, and where if I was in Games Workshop shoes, how I would approach it is this a fun play experience for people? Like, do people want to show up to a tournament with a, you know, let's go with the old, like, you know, standard detachment, like, I got 2 HQs, 3 troops, and 1 of everything, because I'm playing a fluffy Space Marine list, and then they're like, and across the table are 11 tanks that drive straight at me, and I feel like I can't do anything.
You know what kind of does suck, though, on that same note, though, is if you consider, like, the Russ shoot twice thing.
Oh, yeah.
When I look at that and I think, ooh, like, that is not only like the Lehman Russ isn't the number one thing that wins a game for an Imperial Guard player. Like if you have 10 of them, it certainly helps. But I feel like that is an ability that potentially requires a point nerf or something like that. Whereas if you look at a Plague Burst Crawler, sure, it's auto-hitting, but it also has to get right in front of you. So next turn you can assault it and stop it from shooting. Yes, it's tough to say, but at the end of the day, like, this thing's damage output is like relatively minimal unless he's flaming chaff, you know?
I think part of it is how they're testing and how their mentality is with designing some of these units, because I don't know if what they're doing for their playtests is, let's take an army of 11 of these.
Yeah.
And so much of what we've seen out of their testing and their feedback at tournaments, I mean, again, they've been really good about this, is that idea of going like, oh, we didn't think anyone would be enough of a jackal to do this.
Yeah.
And then it's an immediate fix. Not because they feel it's broken, because they were probably assuming like, oh, someone will take, 2 to 4 of these in a list.
Yeah.
Not your entire list is Plague Burst Crawlers.
Yeah.
And a lot of the tournaments we're seeing too are ITC, which have their own system too.
Yeah.
And so because of that, I think when Games Workshop looks at it, it's kind of a coin toss right now, like what direction they'll go. But I think you'll start seeing that in the direction of how they do FAQs and errata, where they're going to look more at less the curb stomp winning lists and more of what is healthy for the game.
Right.
Case in point, I don't think we're going to see Craft World and Yunari shenanigans lasting much longer.
No, I don't think so either. I think something's going to be done about that. Like when you have multiples of the same list essentially show up in the top 4 of a tournament, you're like,
it's going back to what I said, Magic the Gathering.
Yep.
It's that perfect thing from the DCI.
Well, you're just chasing the meta all the time.
And what they do is Alex, him and I used to run tournaments all the time, and now we're just old farts. We talk about this, Nurgle. We talk about this, at lunch sometimes, and it's like the thing with the DCI and Magic is one of the things that they do is they look into what are the top lists, and if 9 of the top 10 lists are the same, there is a problem.
Yes, exactly.
And the LVO is a perfect example of that. Now, again, that's also in a strange situation where they're using their own tournament standards.
It's also one of the very first major 8th edition events.
Exactly. And now that codexes are coming out now, but I think there are certain things where, Games Workshop will come out and say, not working as intended.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, I know from fact that their developers have said some of this stuff, but they aren't making their formal announcements on it yet, because that would look bad on them. It would set bad precedents. They have to do this through their formal channels and get those FAQs and errata.
I'll be perfectly honest. When every Dex is out, I'm really curious to see how the game evolves again, because it's going to change what we're doing now that everyone's on an equal footing to a degree. Question for you, because there was some chat earlier about points, and Jesse just brought it up again. Yeah, we were going to talk about it before the show ended.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about Renegade Open going to 1650.
I am a firm proponent for 1,500 point tournaments, so 1,650 is fine by me.
Edging closer.
If it edges closer, I think 2,000 points is ridiculous.
I think it is ridiculous. You know what? And we used to play 1850 in 7th, and those were long games.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think we're reaching a point with this game where those point costs, a lot of the time people are doing those higher point costs because they can get off, and especially in this edition, all the combo wombos.
Yeah.
I can get all my stratagem points, I can do my crazy thing that I want to do, I can take all these units, and at that point what I've found is there's no choice. It is very difficult to not come up with a list that covers your bases or gets you to do that one thing you want to be really good at. But once you start going down 1,500, you get some gaps.
You know what I like about that is when you decrease the points, you start valuing each model individually, and you look at okay, as opposed to just having this squad because I have this other one here, which I've seen many people do before, what is an actual valuable unit? Is this guy worth the points that he costs when he's not part of a combo? You know, like
exactly. And it's you start looking at things like the Plague Burst Crawler scenario.
Yeah.
Does that become better? Does that become worse? At that point, you know, those type of lists, like in, you know, War Machine Hordes, going back to that, like there's always a sort of thing of, in their tournament scene, because it's very competitive, it's got like what they call skew lists.
Yeah.
And in their style of tournament, and I really like this, and I've always thought 40K should look at this, they do a multi-list format, where when you show up to a match, you might have your, like, this is my armor cracking list, this is my, like, take objectives infantry list, because there's that level of, like, I might come up across that thing that I flat out can't beat.
Yes. Almost like having a sideboard, but it's your whole army.
Exactly.
You make a choice before the first game.
And in 40K, that's really... that you can tell that the game was designed that, like, Scouts Honor, we're not going to do that. Like, we're all going to play with 3 troop choices, 2 HQs, and 1 from every other slot. It's going to be a balance. It's gonna
really
be great.
does not happen.
And that does not happen at competitive tournaments. And you show up to those events, and so much of like how you end up at the end of the tournament is entirely based on your pairings.
Yep.
Like, generalship is important, but I think the less you go into high points, though, the more it becomes about just, I make my rock and I smash you with it. Whereas the further back you go, the more tactical choices you have to make.
Yes.
Because you're not having as much of it.
And you want to preserve a little more.
Yeah.
You know, like when you lose a tax squad, there aren't like 5 other ones. There might be 3 or 2, you know?
It's been really funny playing those Age of Sigmar games, because we're doing 1,000 points Age of Sigmar, and like the comparisons are there because 8th edition and Age of Sigmar are very similar, but we're doing 1,000 points.
Yeah.
So like, so many of Age of Sigmar's missions are like all these objectives, and most of the games I've had, it's like, well, all my units get tied up in turn 2, and like by the end of turn 4, there's not enough models on the table for us to claim objectives. Poop. I think 1,500 is that, like, that nice level where you can still do things like, I'm going to hold on to objectives, I'm going to deep strike something in. In 40K, like, 1,500 points is still, like, 1,650 especially, is still a lot. Like, you're still getting
it. Is, yeah. And you know what? I think this misconception was born of people playing with 7th edition terrain in 8th edition, because that was when the Alpha Strike problem existed, right? Everyone thought the game was broken because if you're shooting across an open friggin' table, whoever goes first, especially the Towfish people, they're going to just hammer you.
Yeah.
And you might get wiped turn 1. But with proper terrain, you can kind of start playing the game again, and then you start looking at things like orcs and Tyranids or any horde army. Like if you had, for example, we were talking about chess clocks, those armies might never actually ever finish a game, even if the player tries as hard as they want in a 2-hour time frame, because there's just too much to move, too much to roll, too much to re-roll, and then too much to roll again. And then your opponent has too much to roll when you wound them, you know?
Yeah. And
60 armor saves.
It's funny because, like, we talk about chess clocks. Like, I'm okay with them to an extent. Like, I've played with them before at events. I think there is a certain, as long as the game is weighted so that hordes generally have an advantage, and that's what we've typically seen. With 8th edition, hordes have a huge advantage compared to small super elite armies.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see how custodes sort of balance that out, but I think there is something to be said for a chess clock, or at least a time turn style environment.
Yes.
Where part of the benefit I'm getting for playing a small elite army is I get to play my turns. I get more time to be tactical. Because I don't think it's fair, personally, if I'm playing my 90 Plague Bearer plus sundry other demons list.
Hey, you know what's super fair? 9 Plague Burst Crawlers.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, if I'm playing
move, shoot, done.
Yeah, if I'm playing my 90 Plague Burst Crawler, my 90 Plague Bearer list with, like, sundry other stuff and all the special characters that I have to move to be in proper formation to get the bubbles, blah, 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 blah. If I'm playing that list and I'm playing, like, the 8 Plague Burst Crawlers or the Custodes list who has 20 models, I don't think that I should be getting 80% of the game time compared
Yeah.
to that person. It's not fair to them.
Yeah.
Because this is like, yes, it's a competitive game, but it's also a game that's based around teamwork. Like so much of what this game is about is kind of relying on your opponent.
2K is just way too big.
Absolutely.
It's got to change. It has to change.
It does. And
Producer Josh put his hands up. He'd like to see 5K.
5K games.
Yeah. 2 hours, guys.
Two and a half.
Please
maybe.
send your
Maybe.
emails to producer Josh at zellers.biz. He'll be accepting all your complaints there.
Oh Lord.
So that's if you're against 5,000 point games in a 2 hour time frame. That's where you
Right
get in
there.
touch with the man himself. We got, looks like, some chat here. Maple Flapjack. Who's the homeboy Maple Flapjack? Do we know this guy? What should I take as anti-armor, laserback, or laserbacks or Preds? Talking about
Wolves.
Space Wolves. Oh boy.
Hot take. Wait for their new
Oh
codex.
boy. Yeah, honestly, if you guys are talking Space Wolves, wait for the decks. Like, I've been sitting on these orc models forever waiting for the decks, but I won't sell them because if that dex comes out and I have to repurchase them at full price, I am actually going to crap blood. Just because I'm so mad.
Just because you're gonna have to sell some internal organs to pay for them again.
Yeah, luckily there's a booming industry across the sea. So if you've got organs you're willing to sell me, so with a little meat on the bone, no pun intended, so I can make a little profit on my sale, load me up with your organs. I'm buying organs wholesale.
I bought all my Nurgle stuff, and yeah, ow.
Now, you actually bought the beautiful new Unclean One
I
model.
did.
Oh my
Did.
god, I wish I had this thing so badly.
It was
so nice.
It was. I can blame Yuri for this,
Mr. Pierogi.
Mr. Pierogi, because we got in our what was my pre-league? Okay, I need to learn this game, and Yuri was good enough to teach me Age of Sigmar.
Yeah.
And I had a great game, learned a lot, and realized, man, I need a great Unclean One, and we were playing at Games Workshop, so we went to the shelf, picked him up, bought him. The joys of me and my partner deciding we don't want kids.
Models.
Yeah, exactly. He is kind of the size of a small child.
There you go.
And so I was like, oh man, I'm going to take 3 months to paint him.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. And then I went to Hidden City, and Yuri and I got in another game, and afterwards I was like, yeah, I kind of worried about the league rules, because the way the league works is you have to keep your general throughout. I'm like, I'll have my little Poxbringer, who's my general the whole league, and when I add in the Great Unclean One, he still can't be there. Yuri's like, well, why don't you paint him up? And I'm like, well, there's no way. And then we got a big snowstorm, and I was stuck at home, and I was just like, paint. Gorgeous model, though.
Do you think he's better in Sigmar or 40k?
I think, okay, so I had to actually assemble mine based off of that, because
Yeah.
I was looking at both systems.
What one can I use? Both.
What one?
Yeah.
Well, what one is going to be average-ish in both?
Yeah.
I ended up going with Bell and Flail.
Yeah.
I think if I was doing just Age of Sigmar, I would go Rotigus,
Yeah.
because he's ridiculous in Age of Sigmar. Mortal wounds from infinite range.
Really?
Roll 7 dice, and based on his wound track, starting at 4+. For every 4+, you roll, and then down to 5, then to 6. Pick a unit at any range that's visible to him. D3 mortal wounds.
Wow.
So yeah,
Doling him out.
and after 2 or 3 turns of that, all your opponent's sundry characters are dead.
Jeez.
Because you can snipe characters.
That's awesome.
In 40k, Rotigus isn't as good. He's okay, but his ability is more did you cast a spell successfully? Do a mortal wound to the closest thing. It's okay, but I really like the Bell in 40k.
Yeah.
The Bell in 40k and in Age of Sigmar, but the Bell is just ridiculous, especially with Plague Toads, because you can keep bringing them back, and it's...
How does the bell work?
in 40k, it's roll a 4+ for any unit within, I think, 6 inches of him, and on a 4+, put a model back in the unit.
Oh,
so
nice.
Plague Drones, Toads, and they come back in full strength.
Just as a model. Oh, that's really nice.
And in Age of Sigmar, the Bell is, are you within 7 of him, get 3 extra movement.
Is that why people are running 3, like a crew of triple unclean ones?
There's
or-
a Age of Sigmar-esque formation.
Yeah, okay.
That's 3 of them.
How many points is that?
I think they're about the same. So it's like
1 million.
So it's like 1,000 give or take for all three. I think a little bit more because I think they're like 300 points in both systems. The one I take is 320.
Okay.
I'm gonna buy another one. I'm getting Rodicus because
Well, I think we can agree that he's some hot shit, but it looks like we've come to the end of the show, so we're getting the wrap it up here, folks. So thanks so much for coming by today, Thirsty.
Oh, yeah. No
Mr.
problem.
Thurston Hillman, Nurgle aficionado.
You'll see me at the Age of Sigmar League, where I'll be, running Plague Bearers until I get all 90 of them done.
On 32s or 25s?
32s.
Ooh.
I know, that kind of kills me inside, but I'm also like, nope, that's what's in the box now. I've got to do it. Because otherwise I'm going to go to a tournament and someone's going to be like, nope, nope, nope.
Legally, you can play them on what they came with.
All
my metal guys have 25s.
I know.
But they're not the ones they came with, though. They are...
There's also something really nice about that big fat footprint now that templates don't exist.
Yes.
So there's
it's really nice.
Yeah, and like deep striking into units of 30. Wow, so good.
Anyhow, without further ado, if you're not having fun, you're cheating, and the name's James Bond. James Bond.
Yeah, did you hear it?
Yes. Yes.
Whoa! Well, look at all those rays.
Yep. What are they going to do? Nothing eats tanks, and sure said nothing eats those robots.
So the relics that I gave was the Fugara's helm to this guy,
That's
so
not a
it
real
adds
thing.
3 inches to his aura, so it's a 10 inch.
Can't make shit up.
Yeah, you can't make shit up, Dan.
Well, I added the relic of nothing to my no one because I have none.
Yes. Neither do my green skins. Okay, do you guys have 6 up?
Okay,
Are you?
No, I'm on
idiots?
5.
Are you fucking ass?
Drop your 6s.
okay, ass clowns, just chill out.
Oh my god! You
Hold on to your asses.
Hold on to your asses. I'm gonna run into a bar and say that. Hold on to your asses.
No, you gotta finish it with hold on to your asses, assholders.
Nice.
Get that duct tape ready, boys.
Show me your assholes.
You got your drop down?